because
We're not on.
we haven't
Hang on,
done
stream validation in progress.
Oh, I see. We need to handshake with a server somewhere now.
Something like that.
Because the switching software is actually in the cloud, right? That you're actually going to be interacting with? No?
This is all new.
Did you download a client of any kind?
I got all kinds of stuff. Okay, I think we might be live now. Refresh that, please. Yeah,
Okay.
click on that. It says live now. And kill your audio here. Okay, we are live. So, welcome everybody. We got a whole new deal set up today. Check it out. How do we get comments? Can you see the comments here?
Yep.
Okay. So for the people that are in the comments, are you seeing a nice, yeah, there you go. Howdy, good morning. Are we able to see the live switched deal? And we got this whole amazing thing happening now where we can bring up web pages and go back and forth.
Seems to be.
Could we bring up Peter W. Smith over here? Let's just see if the switching works.
He's up, and I can bring him there as well. Well, here's the problem.
Can everybody see the screen here? The text.
Bear with us, guys. This is a new streaming app that we're using that should give us a lot more flexibility. Okay, this has got quite a delay. But, so George, that web page is up. What do we want to see on there?
I just want to put that web page right here.
Okay. So then let me do this. Boom. There we go. Yeah, that makes sense.
There we go.
Okay. Cool. So we're live there, George. How you doing this morning? We're a little out of sorts, just figuring out this new software, figuring out what's going on. It is cool, isn't it? I'm glad everybody likes that.
I think everybody can see this better now. Is that what?
Absolutely.
There's a little bit of a delay, so we're gonna have to work through that.
Are you listening to the?
People are saying they can see the.
Yeah. Yeah. So George, you shouldn't worry about the headphones. I wouldn't worry about that. You can just listen live in the room. Unless we have somebody on Skype, you don't need headphones.
Oh, right, of course. Don't know what I'm doing. I just need to get the live feed so I can get comments.
Right, that you should do. So what we've done is, utilizing the cameras that we normally use for our multi-camera shoots, we've now integrated a new iOS app that lets me switch between cameras and bring feed in from the laptop. So now we can have one camera over here, we got one camera on Big G, we got one camera, well, it's not quite on everybody, I'm a little bit cut off, but you guys get the idea. And we can bring in, pictures, so if people want to email pictures, we can put those up. It's going to hopefully be a much more interesting broadcast now. And
Okay, let me know when we hit
comments.
200, and I'll start at 200.
200 people viewing, you mean?
Yeah,
I think we
trigger.
might be there.
It's 162 is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, let's just get it underway.
Okay, great. Yeah, we should reward the people that come early. So is that the close shot, I guess? That's the new close shot?
The close shot, I'm sorry, G, there you go. That's the close shot.
How close is the close shot?
Can't see your
I do have nose
legs.
hair. Oh, that's
no,
good.
no. It's
My
from
legs are
laptop-
getting skinnier, so that's good.
Laptop up.
Laptop up? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, 720p and good sound.
So, Good Morning America. Today's version is going to be called The Story of the Clinton Foundation. And it's going to be, we tussled, and I wanted to call it this because I wanted to call it Hoe and Blow to Hearts and Darts. Meaning that the Clinton Foundation kind of started out with the Bill, kind of good old boys. And it was, if you go back to, the days of Larry, and I'm spacing on his last name.
Nichols.
We did an interview last night with Larry Nichols, and that's really where he was kind of, I wouldn't say he was kind of the political playbook guy for the Clintons, and he came up with all these techniques. He has different names for them, like rope-a-dope, which is basically just ignore a story, put your head out of the ring, and just take a little bit of whaling from the press, and then some flood will come along, or some fire will come along, and then the press will go off in a different direction, and that's what he called rope-a-dope. So he has 6 or 7 of these different plays for the Clinton Foundation. So you can hear our interview last night with Larry. The reason why we didn't publish it is we wanted to make sure that, well, there's a lot of people involved in Washington.
What do you mean? We published it.
Oh, I know we did. Now, we had a decision to make. Do we publish it with his email, and do we publish it with his phone number or not? And there's 2 ways to look at this. A lot of people criticize this for privacy, but also we do want people to send, if you can just send Larry $5 or $2. He
needs money for his health.
He's not in a hospital. He's not in a care facility. He's not got much, much support in terms of people helping taking care of him. So really, literally, I mean, Jimmy John's being able to just go there and deliver him a sandwich makes his whole life a lot better.
He shouldn't be eating Jimmy John's, though. He's got to look out for his health.
Well, if we want him to eat a little bit better, then, Jimmy John's pretty good. So anyway, I'm always the Bubba Watson not Bubba Watson, whoever that guy was, the John Daly. I'm the John Daly over here. Like, you got Jimmy John's? But anyway, so that's the beginning of the Clinton Foundation. It really starts even before, we talked to Charles Ortel yesterday. It becomes incorporated in 1996 as some of these ideas congeal into, hey, how do we make this go big? The first, from 92 to 96 is really taking Arkansas and mapping Arkansas onto the United States. 1996, or the second term, 97 to 2000, is how do we map the Clinton Foundation on the world? Okay, so you have really Hillary kind of as the shadow Attorney General, Shadow Janet Reno, the first term, focused on the U.S., Waco, Oklahoma City, etc. Then the second term, she really becomes Shadow Secretary of State through Madeleine Albright and that. But the transition starts there in 96. And you still have Justin Cooper, Doug Band, Lanny Davis as this kind of group, Ira Magaziner, these old clatch, Bruce Lindsay, this old clatch of good old boys. All they Attorney General, Shadow Janet Reno, the first term, focus on the U.S. I'm not going to say all the girls Waco, Oklahoma City, etc. Goodly, and they're just having a good time, with supermodels in different ports of call around the world. Kind of goes to the, hey, Stranchy, you're so sick, I want to potty with you. And that's really kind of the Clinton Foundation of the 90s. But then there's this underwelling, and it starts in Africa, of this hearts and darts, what I call, which is more the Hillary side. So that's the Bill side of the Clinton Foundation. Then there's this Hillary side, hearts and darts. It starts in South Africa in the transplant program and quietly meanders its way through the continent of Africa, almost like a black mamba snake, coming up to Europe. It starts with the heart transplantation with Christian Barnard. The hearts are coming from different Soweto and different places. It moves up through Zimbabwe. It comes up through Congo, where we bring in Katambe, the war criminal. Hearts are going to be going over to Nairobi for people flying in. As technology is going to get better with saving more of the body parts rather than just taking the heart. Katambe's throwing all those bodies in the lake that we talked about earlier. It's going to move over across, just like the Congo goes and flows out toward Kinshasa and moves toward West Africa. It's going to be the Nigeria. That's where you have Boko Haram. That's where you're going to have all this sex trafficking, explosions everywhere, USAID explosions every time somebody tries to enforce the rules. It's going to come up the West Trans-African Highway. We're going to get into then more advanced weapons, the desert rock, the Western Sahara desert rock that's so critical to make those weapons, which when they touched that girl's face in Yemen, they burned her all the way through the bone. So we're worried about Mika Zabrinsky's facelift. No, we should be worried about the white phosphorus burning that, horribly disfiguring that little Yemeni girl. It's going to go across the shelf of Africa with all the Arab Spring, with all the George Soros information plays that are going to happen through there. We're going to be recruiting all these doctors into this kind of net and then it's going to come up into Kosovo. It has its kind of penultimate moment in Kosovo in 1999 with Madeleine Albright. And that's where this shift happens, where we've moved successfully from just hoe and blow to now hearts and darts. Because all along the way, we've learned the value of humans as chattel, as cows or pigs, and we've also perfected our operations in weapons. So we have uranium coming from depleted uranium shells coming from Congo, from the same place where the high quality uranium ore came from for the Manhattan Project in World War II, that same Congo. You're going to have Katambi split the country in two to get that uranium resource. A lot of other resources, a lot of other resource plays that I won't talk about right now, but then coming up through and learning about the white phosphorus. So these really horrific weapons, the depleted uranium and the white phosphorus. And then it's going to come into NATO. So it comes in through NATO through in 1999 in Kosovo, and that's going to be up until now. The only thing that's going to happen is that play in Kosovo is just going to get that DynCorp, all those rat lines, hoe and blow, and hearts and darts. Darts, I'm saying, is weapons like uranium, depleted uranium, and white phosphorus. You're going to put all of them together. So if you want a visual, Jason created a visual with the arrow symbolizing the darts, and the heart is represents all the organ trafficking. And the reason why the arrow goes from the right to the left is because we're not making progress. We're not going up and to the right. We're going from the upper right down to the left, down into the Bauges, down into Dante's Inferno, down into the Bauges. And the hoe and blow symbol, you can choose forever you want, but since Happy Hearts was Nemcova and Sean Penn had quite the cocaine addiction, and then I'm not saying anything about Nemcova with the other derogatory word, but you could get all in one visual, all the rat lines in one visual. Go ahead.
Well, Joanne 1520 is saying that the Hawkshead Drive house is in foreclosure. Are we sure about that? Can we confirm that? What would you make of that, George? Andre Taggart's got to find a new place to live.
Well, so yeah, no, that's interesting. I'd love the confirmation. Yesterday we came out with ACG, and ACG could be
Association for Corporate Growth.
Association for Corporate Growth, and why don't you explain a little bit more?
So this is a networking organization. It's international, and it's targeted to serve private equity funds who are looking for investment opportunities, and it matches them up with founders and CEOs of small companies that are looking for capital infusions. So yeah. It's a very closed, tight network of, between finance and business owners.
Now, were you involved with Palantir at ACG?
No, I wasn't.
But Palantir is a member of ACG.
That's my understanding.
So you would go there as Palantir to find not seed money necessarily for your first round, but maybe,
it could be a first fund.
Insiders round, your friends and family round. Right?
It would be after that.
It would be after friends and family into like an SEC filing, an S1?
Exactly.
Okay, so, but it would be interesting if we had kind of an investment marketing company associated with all these rat lines.
Yeah.
Because and we're going to get to Peter Smith in a minute and the death of Peter Smith, because as John Podesta would always tell you, before somebody's a donor, they want to be a recipient, right? So I could use the NGP Van software to sit down with somebody, find out all about them when I sit like this with you and I'm interviewing you. Hey Trish, you got kids that are going to college, is that important to you? Anyone want to be a doctor? Anyone want to be a lawyer? Oh, Jason, you got an older grandmother that has an old heart, she's dying of old heart, or she's dying of old lung, she's dying of old kidney. Oh, that's terrible, and then, oh, by the way, we do have an association maybe we can hook you up with. But I'm writing down heart prospect, medical school prospect, right? And then if I know what you want to receive, you're much more likely to give me a donation, right? So that's why that's why this is all together.
Well, and if you take that in the context of ACG, the private equity networking group, you're more likely to accept the investment of a party that's going to, so if I were a private equity firm looking to invest and I wanted you to choose my firm, I could say, oh, well, I happen to know someone who might be able to help you, and it would make you more disposed to accepting my funding, and therefore I gain control in your company and can manipulate things that way.
So it is interesting that we do have these ACGs, and I'm not saying this is an association for growth. I'm just saying we're looking at these ACGs that just happen to be out of Imran Awan's home in Virginia, which is odd.
Yeah.
And these are all kind of an investment marketing people. There's kind of like some lawyers, and then it's almost like an incubator group.
That's right, because there are accountants and
computer specialists, people who write code for you.
Yep.
It reminds me of an incubator. All the people that you see on that are just this smattering of experts that could kind of help you launch your startup. Yeah.
That's right.
And so that's when Trish was talking about association for corporate growth as an incubator service, basically, and then I was looking at all the people who were on the Awan's list in ACG and Lorton in Hawkshead. I was like, wow, this is pretty good. These people are pretty damn good. This would be a great incubator, right?
Yeah.
Which matched up really clearly with your ACG. And the fact that there was one in Virginia, there was one in Charleston, South Carolina. I mean, really?
Yeah.
There's one in Sugar Land, Texas, if you've watched the series and all the things we've done on Javid in Texas. And then there's going to be one in McCain territory.
And that's how Palantir would work it, is they would, you know, oh, we want to give you a lot of money, you know, liquidate your holdings a little bit, help you do some estate planning, and is there anything else we can help you with?
It's almost like is it a Keiretsu or a Zaibatsu? You know, with the interlocking directorates, you know, it's like we all need to support each other, guys.
Yeah.
We all need to, you know, if you're going to do marketing, you should really do your investment advice over here.
Yep.
We should really create this kind of society, you know, within ourselves here.
That's definitely how it works.
Yeah,
I was a member for a number of years. And that's definitely how it works.
Yeah, and it's Keiretsu or Zaibatsu is the Japanese word for it, but I mean, this is as old as the hills as far as trade networks or guilds or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So, or brotherhoods.
Yeah, yeah.
So especially if you're dealing in things like arms, like
back.
uranium.
I know, it's so stupid.
Or white phosphorus, or things like that. So anyway, I know this is a little bit, this is the think piece. This is the family puzzle part of the thing where we all talk about what each piece of the puzzle could be. Like, wow, that looks like a dog's nose. Oh, there it goes. Oh, that's actually, you know, whatever. So this is that part of that. So we're going to stop that. We're going to go to the news piece, which is going to be the Peter Smith thing.
Well, this was an Eric Holder tweet that came up.
Oh, yeah. So ridiculous.
He's kind of a dope.
Your actions,
Well,
you're going to be unfairly questioned? Like, did you pick up the laptops and the BlackBerries over at 9667?
Well, that's also the guy who refused to prosecute, I forget the bank, that illegally foreclosed on active duty servicemen and women back.
Right.
Well,
so the obvious reason, I mean, maybe this isn't obvious, but so when I went and found all the BlackBerries, right, and all the laptops over at the Lorton house, the Hawkshead house, right, and they all had the congressional markings, and Andre Taggart said that. The only reason I could figure them for still being there, because it's just such an obvious.
I thought he said that the FBI took them.
Yeah,
but did they bring them back?
Well, I think they may have still been there when I went there, because they didn't get moved over to the Capitol Police until a couple months later. And the reason why you would have them there is, remember, all these BlackBerries are secure. If you were having an ACG type meeting and it was about depleted uranium, or it was about white phosphorus, or it was about something that was sarin gas, or it was about viruses from Duke, or it was about biorecovery from BioFlorida, recovering bodies from Haiti, or it was about bringing Haitian prisoners to Home and Square and torturing them before you harvest
their
them,
organs.
or it was about any of these rat line things. You would want to have a colloquium, of devices for people that they could use. You'd say, okay, leave all your
regular
stuff out there. Don't bring it in. Take the batteries out. Matter of fact, don't even drive over here. But we're going to have, it's this 5-bedroom house. It's this big house with this big basement. And they had this huge basement, finished basement. I saw the video going through. It's just really nice. It's like, what's going on? But so you're not looking in the windows. And you're going, okay, yeah, I could do that. Yeah, I could do that. Yeah, we could handle 100 kids a year. Yeah, we could do 50 hearts. Yeah. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to make this Eyes Wide Shut, but why else would you keep those devices there if they weren't being... The other one is, I just need a store of secure phones that I can keep sending back into Congress, and it's just like an IT guy storing them.
Wasn't that Anthony Weiner's job?
Well, Anthony Weiner is the conduit for that, and he's going to call the IT guys and say, hey, get a phone over here. But why wouldn't you just store that in you lock it, you store it?
Right.
Why would you have it out into this nice house that can have these catering events?
Right.
With these Eyes Wide Shut kind of meetings? Why else would you shut it down after the Marine says he's going to sign a 5-year lease? I mean, as soon as he said 5-year lease and they're shutting it down, because he told me, Andrew Taggart, on the doorstep, he said, we just signed a 5-year lease.
I don't know if he was being honest with you, G.
I've never heard of a 5-year lease.
Well, that's what he told me to my face. So,
what's the address over there? 9667
Hawkshead Drive.
That's really unusual to sign a 5-year lease.
Well, and that's the only reason I can think of is why would you leave that equipment out in the open for the Marine to...
We've got it up on screen here. Now, somebody said, I forget who it was, but somebody said that it was in foreclosure. How can we tell from Zillow if it's in foreclosure?
Well, it says it's a pending sale, too.
Now, there's also another house right around the corner.
It's just gone down 11 grand.
Well, and here's where everybody says, oh, Fox broke this story before you did, and Maria Bartiromo broke it before you did, and Varney broke it before you did. I never said that Luke Rosiak and all these people didn't break this story before me. I'm just the one who said I followed up on it. I went to the 12 houses, the 22 businesses. I went to all the rat lines. I went to all the murder sites where they're registered agents, and I just followed the spider web of all their different machinations. Personally, all right, firsthand. Nobody else did that. Nobody else did that. So I want to say Luke Rosiak did a great job with the Virginia arrest record of April the 15th or whatever to get Jelani, the stepmom, talking about how the kids threatened her kid, threatened to kidnap her kids and kill all of her relatives. All that stuff, that's all Luke Rosiak. It's all out there. It's all published. Everybody knows Luke Rosiak did that. They know Maria Bartiromo was the first one to publish it in MSN. I gave first instant somebody wrote the whole story. I credited Garth on the street in New York yesterday. Garth Kant
at WND.
At WND, even though WND's had some shady stuff.
Well, but it's a great. It details everything. It covers the whole story.
You read it, right?
Yeah.
It's an opus de magnum. I mean, it's a beautiful treatise.
It really is.
And you could tell he taught news writing. Because
it's nicely laid out.
And hey, CNN and hey, MSNBC, you need to hire Garth back. I don't know how the hell you let him out the door, but you guys are crap now. You need to go get Garth right now. I mean, throw your coffee out the door as you run to your car to go get Garth now. I mean, literally. I mean,
if anybody feels like they're a little bit sort of out of the loop or behind on the story, it's a great.
It'll catch you right up. It'll catch you right up. And it's the piece that I didn't have to write. Garth wrote it for me.
It'd take you about 10 minutes to read through it, but it's...
Somebody said if it was in the newspaper, it'd be half the newspaper.
Yeah.
Because it is a long piece. And Garth has half of it. The other half of it, we have. So just read that, and then you can skip the first, you won't get the Braverman stuff. Okay, so let's transition. It's so fun to do the family puzzle session, though. That's my favorite part of it. But let's go to the Peter Smith thing. So,
You want to pull it up on the...
So it turns out that the big story was the New York Times just did a retraction and said it wasn't the 17 agencies that were all in agreement on the Russia hack. It was actually, in fact, only 3. It was the CIA, it was ODNI, I don't know which one's ODNI. This is going to be the ODNI here in the middle, and the FBI, wherever the FBI is. There, FBI here. So, FBI, Andrew McCabe, and it's actually only going to be one person within each group. Andrew McCabe, John Brennan, and Clapper.
John Brennan being the guy who lied about the NSA spying on Americans. He lied to Congress.
And now the article came out yesterday that he did target Trump. So he's the guy who did all the targeting for Susan Rice and all the other folks. Now, if you want to listen to the Larry Nichols interview last night, he goes through this. He goes through the phone conversation with John Brennan and Comey at the time, and they're talking to Susan Rice and Loretta Lynch, saying, and with John Podesta supposedly, and John Podesta is saying, Comey, what the hell? Because this is after Comey went out on the 26th or 27th and said, oh,
all the things Hillary did wrong in handling the emails.
Yeah. The first one, July 5th, was she was extremely careless. But then this one was, oh, we have evidence now that the investigation has been reopened.
Oh, okay.
Remember?
Yeah.
And then Podesta supposedly screams and yells, and this is called, you'll hear it if you listen to Crowdsource the Truth, Larry Nichols, that you ruined it. You lost the election for us. Basically, Podesta's blaming Comey in the tape.
But his reopening of the investigation was based on the 650,000 emails that went to Anthony Weiner's laptop, right?
Yes. And the fact that foreign intelligence agencies also had that data. So this is where Peter Smith comes in. Peter Smith, somehow 81 years old Washington vet, member of the Atlantic Council. Who do we know on the Atlantic Council? Well, there's George Soros is a member of the Atlantic Council. Who else is on the Atlantic Council? CrowdStrike. Dmitry Alperovitch is on the Atlantic Council. So
yeah, that's crazy.
This is just such a tawdry web. But anyway, Dmitry Alperovitch. Well, Dmitry, I love saying that name, Dmitry knows and uses ex-Russian hackers, and they've been bringing ex-Russian hackers down to Ukraine for, I don't know, ever since I was in Czechoslovakia. So that is, I'm not going to say anymore. But they've been doing this since 90, okay, 91.
Sorry, George, what is it, 9776 Hawkshead?
Yeah, 9667 Hawkshead Drive. So this has been a program since the fall of the Soviet Union. 92 is the latest, okay? They've been bringing Russian hackers. We hired a lot of them at McAfee. That's how I know about the program. I might have known about it before then. But Alperovitch was one of them. And the Atlantic Council really was a funnel to bring hackers out of Russia into the Baltic states as well as Ukraine. But the big operation was in Ukraine, okay? And I think everybody knows that. I'm not spilling any national secrets. There was some in Czechoslovakia, some in Romania, some in Albania. We all know this. Okay, so we just need to scroll down a little on Peter Smith. So Peter Smith's in this world, right? The spy world, basically, which is you're repatriating really smart guys like Dmitry Alperovich's father, Mikhail. You have to bring a little phlegm up every time you say Mikhail. So when you bring, and Mikhail is the one who brought over all this Vault 7 stuff. A lot of the Vault 7 tools were from Russia. You'll just trust me. Just trust me. So anyway, but rebadged and rewritten, you know,
updated
over time. But I want to say by those guys. By the same
When
guys.
you say it was brought over, what does that mean?
I mean he physically brought it out of Russia. I am saying Mikhail Alperovitch physically brought the code out in some kind of storage device, physically, in Berlin, to the United States.
So that's where they got those tools?
That's where CIA through
they didn't
BND
create them.
No, no.
Yeah.
Through BND, I'm saying right here, right now on this channel, through BND brokered the exchange, but that's where they got these tools.
And then they let the rest of the world.
The Tom Hanks movie that just was done with him going to brokering this,
Yeah. Okay.
What movie was that?
it's about that. So anyway, these guys, they kept them on contract, okay? Just like for virus writing, like we kept, for McAfee kept the Russians, Dmitry, the son, he was in the virus writing, so that became McAfee Threat Group. But we had other guys in Estonia doing cyber attack stuff, and then the hacking guys were down in Ukraine. They're all over, but I mean, for the most part, the hacking group was in Romania and Ukraine. Okay.
Guccifer too is in Romania, isn't he?
Well, we.
So the reason why they named it Guccifer is the wild goose chase. Okay, and the reason why Goose One was brought in to do hacking to extort political contributions from Hollywood, and also get rid of what's her name, Amy, that ran
Sony.
Oh, Amy Pascal.
Amy Pascal. Get rid of Amy and put in their people into, and that was all set up by Tom Knight.
It's too bad they didn't get rid of her before Amazing Spider-Man. That was terrible.
You might have got paid. You might have got the other 400,000.
No, I got paid for Spider-Man. That was the camera development that they didn't pay for. I gotta get.
Oh, that's
back
more
to-
than that. That's 1.3 million.
Well, no.
That's a different story. But anyway, the story is, Clintons have had the line on the Ukrainians, hackers. This was before the Iwan brothers. The old group was the Ukrainians. Okay.
And that's how they were spying, was through the
Hacking.
The hacking. Okay.
So they brought the tools in. Now there's a China group too that Hillary brings in for China secrets, but most of the hacking up until the Iwans is going to be the Ukrainians. Okay, that's where Alperovich comes in and all those guys.
And the Iwan started showing up in Congress in like the late 90s, right?
Yeah, late 90s. 2003 is really, the big signal is 1999, Gulen comes here, and then everything flows after Gulen. You have your spiritual leader, fake, it's a Graham Fuller.
Well, that's where a lot of the visa and immigration fraud began.
In 1999, they're bringing in their teams. They know they got to set up because they're going to lose in 2001. George Bush's folks are coming in. Now, I'm not saying George Bush didn't also bring in the Ukrainians and the Romanian hackers as well. Okay, I mean that did happen, but they were still, Kerry, Biden. That connection to Ukraine has always been kind of the Democratic base of hackers and whatnot. Okay. And then the Estonia is another one. That's
Is
big.
John McCain and Lindsey Graham tied in at that point?
And that's where everybody gets thrown, because it is the Senate Arms Services Committee.
Okay.
Senate Arms Serving Ourselves Committee. This is what throws everybody. It's a Republican and Democratic in the Senate.
It's clearly bipartisan.
It's not a conspiracy. Let's just say it's a Association for Corporate Growth. It's an ACG. It's the Senate ACG, which is, hey, instead of me having my arms factory in Bulgaria, at the arsenal in Bulgaria, and you having your arms factory in Pakistan, why don't I take a 20% or 30% stake in yours? You take a 30% stake in mine. So depending on the slings and arrows of outrageous politics, it may go a little your way, it may go a little my way, but we're never going to fight each other. We're always going to be partners. Right? So no matter what happens, you say Trump's an idiot over here, and I'll say Trump's an idiot over here, and we'll all say Trump's an idiot, okay? And then we'll get him impeached, and that's kind of the strategy they took.
Yeah.
Right?
Clearly.
So here's where Peter Smith comes in. This is the spy who came in from the cold. This is the guy who's involved in bringing these people back and forth, right? So Charles knows him pretty well, I believe. Charles knows Peter
It sounded
Smith
like it.
pretty well, yeah. So, and Charles, I'm not trying to, never mind.
Just remember what you're not supposed to talk
Yeah,
about.
I'm not going to talk about that. But I mean, Charles as a journalist knows a lot of background on this.
Yeah.
We're going to have
Very
him call
important.
in tomorrow, I think. Or we could...
Today, we should do this today.
Well, we didn't call him before. We could do it today.
At the Highline? Because I think following up on this Peter Smith story is going to be huge.
I don't know if we can take all this stuff to the Highline. I mean, we could, but we'd be on 4G, so maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go to
Maybe
his,
we could get Wi-Fi over on the Highline. We'll go check that out later.
Yeah. Well, I guess I shouldn't have broadcast where we're going to... I shouldn't have broadcast where we're going to broadcast from, but anyway.
We didn't give a time.
So if you scroll down on the 17 agencies a little bit, and up, I mean, okay. Oh, click on Peter Smith over here, on About Peter Smith. All right, so if you scroll up, you'll find that here's the Atlantic Council here, 12 years on the Atlantic Council. The Atlantic Council is going to be your movement for hackers and whatnot. They're going to talk about other things, but the Atlantic Council basically, it's almost an entendre for the North American Treaty Organization. You know, it's almost like we're going to get the Russian guys out of Russia and we're going to flip them. We're going to use the same tools that they were going to use against us. We don't have to redevelop them. We don't have to retrain the programmers because they're the guys who wrote the code. We'll just give them a little bit of money and a girlfriend and we got them for life, right? So there's these...
DeFango got the money deal, I think. They couldn't find a girl to go with that.
But, you know, I mean...
Well,
That's all
speaking
you
of
need.
which, you
really,
know, that
I
whole...
mean, these guys never saw that kind of money before. The guys we got, the 14 guys we got from Moscow, or the 12 guys we got from Moscow, it was like cold water flat, no heat, $200 a month. They got
And they're all sharing it. I mean,
all the vodka they could drink, and that was it. I mean, these guys did such an upgrade. But this was the Atlantic Council. That was George Soros. That was that program. So you can see he was 97 to about 2014 doing this at Digicom.
What's
which
Digicom?
well, they were doing seed investment, seed capital, and so forth.
But something about Digicom is
Well,
like,
Digicel is the Irish cell phone.
So
company that
scroll
took
up a
over
little
in
bit.
Haiti.
Scroll up a little bit, please, or down a little bit, because it says that organization undertakes military, trade, and diplomatic initiatives in Europe.
Oh, geez.
And Middle East and Asia. So it was kind of like, he was kind of like the Comey of Bridgewater. Comey of Bridgewater and Lockheed, basically, Comey goes into Lockheed and he finds out all the fingerlings that they're investing in. So it's going to be like, oh, you know, what is the acquisition piece of hardware? Is Teltron or Textron? Textron does the target acquisition eye. And then the FLIR had the FLIR gear, and then the Raytheon missiles are going to hang off of it, and all the stuff in the cockpit, the helmet, the fly helmet. That's what the F-35 fly helmet is, about this big, right? The pilot can't turn his head because it's so big, but it's got more electronics than you could ever imagine. So what the NATO generals did, this is why the NATO generals are so important. The NATO generals are going through Peter Smith, okay? Mm-hmm. And he is creating these funding private equities to put into these different things.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. So your CSIS here is the intelligence organization in Canada. The Brookings Institution is
Scary looking dude.
Yeah.
well, Brookings
It's a weird
Institution, for those who
face.
don't know, is a big George Soros hangout. This is also the CEO of BlackBerry is in the Brookings Institution. I can't remember his name right now. But then chairman of Young College Republicans. So he had more of a George Bush type thing. Now, like I said, this is a joint venture, this Senate Armed Self-Services Committee, right?
Self-services committee?
Self-Services Committee. You had some Republicans on one side, you had some Democrats on the other. Now, both sides are invested together, right? Mm-hmm. But both sides can play kerplunk. Right? So we have all of our marbles here, and then we all have all of our deals, right? Mm-hmm. Our secrets. If I start pulling out straws here on you to make you look bad, right? To kerplunk your marbles, you know, to let's say take the fangs out of the Trump narrative, the Trump hoax. Let's say somebody in the administration swings me over and convinces me to go on the Trump side now and get off the coup bandwagon. And I have access to intelligence agencies. I have access to the 33,000 emails that Hillary has, right? Because that's what Peter Smith had. He had the 33,000 emails, right? So if I start leaking emails that show all the rat lines and so forth,
They'll be able to identify you right away. Yeah.
you're the spy who came in from the cold, and now
Yeah.
you are a liability. You went from an asset to a liability in one day, and
he's gone,
He's
yeah.
dead. When he wrote this, when did he write that? I thought this came out in mid-May when Peter Smith wrote this.
Can you scroll
Can you scroll up
to
a
see
little
if
bit?
there's a date, Jason?
Yes,
on that?
sorry. I was just doing comments. there.
And national campaign activity in Chicago, Illinois. All the investment groups meet in Chicago. You remember the guy that the expose, that guy from ABC, really great investigative
You know
reporter.
what? We could put something on this Mac so you guys could put stuff on the
Yeah.
screen and control.
Oh, that'd be
it.
nice.
Maybe
Yeah.
we could do that for the next broadcast.
Next broadcast.
Because I have my whole library on here that I
Yeah.
can use.
I can't remember the guy's name, but great investigative reporter.
Which,
ABC.
oh gosh, it's been so long since I watched any of those stations. I
Yeah,
don't
I'll
remember.
think of it in a second. But the one guy who was sitting on the Security Council for missiles and space defense,
Mm-hmm.
and he knew nothing at all.
Oh, yes. Yeah. He was a foundation donor and
Yeah, yeah,
suddenly
yeah.
appears
He was
on
a
this,
Chicago guy who
with
was
no security
Yeah,
clearance,
yeah.
nothing.
Sitting on the top level security committees.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you go away from Peter Smith for a second and then go over to his blog.
His blog?
Yeah, so if you just go to petersmith.wsmith.com.
Okay.
The reason why this is important is he just had sudden heart attack.
Where's
now,
the
now he
blog?
was 81. If you go
Corporate Venture Alliance
Alliances.
website?
That's his.
Uh,
Which is the blog?
let me look.
Isn't it the one that you're on?
Well, he wrote about the.
Isn't this Corporate Ventures Alliance?
That's his VC firm.
You're saying he had 7 heart attacks?
No.
No.
He had a sudden heart attack.
Oh.
After it was revealed that he had access to those emails.
So
the 33,000
interestingly enough,
emails.
Charles ends up talking to him just by chance an hour before his death. And sometimes you'll do that in the intelligence business to fix somebody. Like you'll wait until somebody who is a friend calls somebody and then eliminate the other guy as a chill to the friend as well. You can't kill everybody, right? You got to do some fear.
Well, and Charles has uncovered, he's done an incredible job of uncovering the fraud at Clinton Foundation.
I mean, you can kill this guy anytime you want, right? So,
and it's not so suspicious because of his age
right.
either.
So, anyway. Looks awfully good for 82.
I don't think he looks good at all.
That picture
For 82 he looks
really
okay, but he's a
peculiar.
weird
But anyway,
looking dude.
on the blog, if you find his blog, it'll actually talk about all this stuff. And you can see it's a very intelligence-based blog. All the things he talks about. They're always military investment or investments in and around military diplomacy, intelligence business.
I mean, we have him on Twitter, but I got a roofing and siding contractor with the same name. That's a little bit of a...
That's not going to be
Peter
the
W.
same.
Smith had a blog, claims WikiLeaks had Hillary deleted emails.
So this goes to support my theory, and this goes back to like day 50, which was several intelligence agencies have all of Hillary's emails. Several intelligence
Well,
agencies.
of course, NSA would because they capture every single digital communication.
Bill
by
Binney has
anyone.
said that.
Yeah,
Bill Binney has said that several times. But what I'm saying is several intelligence
Yeah.
agencies, potentially Russia, potentially Israel, potentially China, potentially Britain, potentially France.
Well, I'm sure Israel does because I worked with one of my partners previously. Did big data movements. That was his specialty.
Like an NGP van
He
movement?
actually, he transmitted the Desert Storm plans the night that was undertaken. So, and most of the operations were based out of Israel. And from what he said, I mean, they capture everything. regardless, like the NSA does. They manage to capture everything somehow.
Now, don't give away your Mossad connections here.
That's a joke, sure.
That's a joke.
I didn't work with the company. This other
Okay,
one
so this is kind of like a Saturday morning coffee talk. You know, you have to think a little bit, get some coffee going before you can kind of connect these dots like this. But this is going to be a key guy. The problem is when you start killing these guys off, the other guys who are involved in this don't necessarily get the chill. They start saying, if I don't come forward now, I'm in more danger than I was before.
Right.
Right?
Which seems to be that we've seen to have hit an inflection point, I think, given
The Brooklyn doctor shooting hoax yesterday.
Yeah.
Now, how do we know
There
that's
was
a
no
hoax?
doctor by that name. Someone,
Really?
you know, I give everybody.
Dr. Sava?
It wasn't Dr.
Well,
Sava,
there
it
are
was
a couple
somebody
people
else.
in the room who have a son who is a Bronx doctor.
How do they think? How do they think that?
For that Bronx doctor shooting hoax to come out yesterday is just a little, you know.
The thing is, how do
close
they
to home.
think that people aren't going to find out that there's no doctor by that name? I mean, they've heard of the internet, right?
They don't think people are going to drill down on these things. I think sometimes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, you know, Bronx was where the doctor was that jumped off the George Washington Bridge.
Right.
That did Happy Hearts
Right.
movement for. And his wife worked at ABC. She ran the health beat at ABC. I can't remember her name right off the bat. But they threw him off the George Washington Bridge because, if you remember, I think he was at a Bronx hospital. I don't know if it was Leonard or not.
I just got a black screen.
That would be interesting if he was from Leonard.
Yeah.
That basically is saying keep your mouth shut at Leonard.
So, what was his? I gotta find. I'm gonna look for that.
Somebody can.
text.
Lori, I know you're out there. Look up and see the guy who was thrown off the GW Bridge about.
The George Webb Bridge?
Yeah, last August. He is the guy who he had a practice in. I want to say Fort Lee, New Jersey, but his hospital, his operation, the place he did operations, his operating theater, for some reason was in the Bronx.
So it was they were divorced apparently when that happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful, happy kids.
Dr. Robert Ashton.
Ashton. Now, see where.
2 weeks after his divorce from Jennifer Ashton, who is the ABC news chief. He was a thoracic surgeon, yeah, so.
No, I know he's
Yeah,
a heart
okay.
transplant surgeon, and
That's right.
he had his operating theater for some reason in the Bronx, I believe.
Maybe Albert Einstein Hospital?
You were born in Albert Einstein in the Bronx?
Yeah.
Because there's an Albert Einstein Neurology down on First Avenue under the 59th Street Bridge.
Yeah, I wasn't born there.
Oh, you were born in the Bronx, Albert Einstein. Ah.
Yep.
You weren't born at Leonard Hospital. That's good. If you would have, that would have been interesting. Okay, well, we need to move the show along. We've probably spent a little too much time on
Well, were we
Peter
going to talk about Carlos Slim and
Yeah.
transplant places in Mexico?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
All right.
Well, are we getting any comments first? I want to see if
We're
anybody.
getting a lot of comments.
Okay, why don't we go comments first on this and then move on?
Well, people are talking about the doctor, the shooting being posted 3 days earlier. Somebody wants a Smith Munt cake on Arthur Avenue.
Oh, so
That's serious business music. I haven't been to Arthur Avenue in a long time. I think you got more Italian food there than Munt cake.
We were going to have a Smith Munt cake at Variety until they disagreed with our political views.
Yeah, that was rude, I thought.
I don't even think of us as political. I mean, it's like.
Oh, really?
I think of us as more like, well, I'm against white phosphorus weapons. I'm against depleted uranium weapons.
Look at this. Trump and Pence staffs are feuding. I think Pence has got some plans.
I think Trump's figuring it out. Slowly but surely. He's kind of like walking in the dark, bumping.
well,
into
he has
things.
people who are some of his advisors are behind the whole coup, unfortunately. I'm looking. There's somebody.
Go ahead.
So someone is asking This is Sean Hall asking George, who hacked the Soros emails in 2016? I didn't know Soros had his emails hacked.
Yeah, there was a trove. There was a trove. So I haven't spent as much time with that, but why don't you ask them what the most significant email that came out of that? I think the one that I saw was that Albania was the stockpile, was stockpiling weapons to overthrow Albania. I thought that came out of the Soros trove.
Well, you've just asked, so we'll see.
Yeah, give it to the crowd. Let them. I'm not getting any comments. My
Aren't you on YouTube there?
Yeah, but it's totally dead.
Oh,
Refresh
somebody
it.
said you were going to do a Home and Square update.
Yeah, I was in Chicago for a little bit of time, but I had to get up so early to get on the next plane. I didn't get out to Home and Square that midnight. I wanted to do like a 2 a.m. thing, hoping I could hear the screams of the people that are being tortured, the Haitian prisoners that are being tortured, but I couldn't. But I do believe I am with Field O'Connell on one thing: the whole Con Air and the flying of convicts from Florida to Chicago using U.S. Marshals. Yep, I'm in 100% agreement with that piece of the story. The other piece I don't know about. It may very well be happening with the kids. I do know about the convicts being flown there and then being tortured in Home and Square and then becoming organ donors.
There was a really great article about Home and Square recently.
The reason why Home and Square gets away with it is because it's being declared like a Guantanamo area. It's like a State Department sanctuary within the United States. It's not really in Illinois. It's not really in Chicago. It's not really in the United States. It's really just an extension where we can do torture so it's more convenient for FBI counter intel, right? They don't want to fly to Guantanamo. It looks funny. The FBI's flying to Guantanamo,
In 2015, The Intercept did an article about it, calling it the equivalent. Well, I guess The Guardian called it equivalent of a CIA black site, but there's another one more recently where they have interviewed detainees. That's
What did Craig Murray say about The Guardian? Good or not good?
Sometimes they have good stuff.
Daily Mail is the one that's just a scandal sheet. Yeah.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things when we were talking earlier about Guccifer and Guccifer 2 is that the clues that maybe we know the person that was Goose 2, even though there's the Ukrainian dude that's being cast as Goose 2. Mm-hmm. There really is one, and he's actually here in the United States, possibly.
But didn't we see him in Virginia, in Arlington?
That's Goose 1.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So he was in jail at the time of the Goose 2. But Goose 2 could be anybody because like I said, there's a clutch of Romanian hackers. It wasn't the one Romanian gardener. Goose 1, they had this story about, I would read Hillary's emails for 3 or 4 hours, then I would go gardening, then I would come back in and I would read her email for 3 or 4 hours, right? So, no. They were hacking the bushes to get dirt on the bushes. That was Hillary's hackers. And they were hacking Sony and different people in Hollywood.
I don't believe that. I really do think that the Sony hack was internal, disgruntled people who had the passwords.
Well, it could be. That could very well be. I'm just saying that information somehow got to Tom Nidus, and Nidus leveraged it to get contributions for Hillary. Now, you can cover it with Guccifer as a covering hack. Remember, Dr. Corsi did a great job on this. He said it's either a leak is on the inside, a hack is from the outside.
Right.
If you have a leaker and you want to protect the leaker, you need to cover it with an outside hack. And coming up with a goofy name like Guccifer, which is kind of code name for Wild Goose Chase, we're going to lead the press on this Wild Goose Chase, makes a lot of sense.
Well, but then Craig Murray had said that by saying that they were not thumb drives that he dealt with, supports the idea that it was the data transfer. And then there's also the evidence of the traffic on those dates. But so how would that, if it were a hack, then?
So Guccifer basically said, I guessed Lakers for all the passwords at Sony, and everybody at Sony had the password Lakers, and I got into all this information. And no, I agree. I agree with what Jason just said. There was a leak inside the IT department. All you need to do is get one person who you can clarify their ideas, which is basically implanting a revenge motive. But the CIA calls that clarifying someone's ideas. But you clarify their ideas to say, the best thing that can happen is you give me all the information about all your executives. We'll decide how to make best use of it, but that's really what you have to do if you want to be a good American today. I have to clarify your thinking, right? Now I go back and decide which things to release. I release a thing about Amy Pascal with the Obama jokes. She resigns, and then I bring in who I want. And if she doesn't give me the $1 million gift, then you're done. So Bill Maher gives $1 million to Hillary Clinton. I mean, that whole 2014 thing was, hey, I'm going to be running in 2016, and I got to set it up. I got to set it up.
Right.
So Goose 1 goes away. So now I need to come up with a Goose 2. A Goose 2 again is I use a hack to cover a leak. This time it's a disgruntled leak because the stuff was nasty, and it was nasty about Hillary and Podesta, right? That's why it's Braverman. The person who has access to that stuff is Braverman, not just Justin. Justin has administrative access, but Justin doesn't know where the bones are buried. Justin doesn't know where the King of Morocco deal for $28 million for the phosphorus weapons. He doesn't know where that stuff is. He needs somebody to point the way. He needs a searchlight. He needs a guide. That's why it was them together. Braverman is the answer.
Yeah, I totally believe that. That makes.
But we'll keep with the Seth Rich thing too as an alternative theory.
Yeah, because again, Craig Murray didn't know who he was dealing with.
Craig Murray could, if you have Craig Murray come over, you can build your school play with Craig Murray with an unwitting player.
Right.
I can just say we're going to meet in the park, or meet down by the British Embassy, and just say, here's the password.
I'll tell you what else about Craig Murray. All those guys, Julian Assange, Craig Murray, George Webb, they don't speak to you directly on the nose. They're telling you things, but they want you to figure out exactly what they mean. So when he says, oh, there was no thumb drive, that is, I didn't have a thumb drive, it's like, was there, wasn't there? I don't know.
There you go. Now you're rolling. So let's switch gears here.
Okay, what
so,
do we want
so,
to
so you're going to have to do
Mexico.
comments. It's completely useless. They've trashed my species again. So
right, okay, so this is
useless.
the Carlos Slim article right there.
Yeah, so I just want to talk about, and this isn't a vendetta against Carlos Slim. I kind of actually like Carlos Slim.
Why?
I'm just kind of saying that as a...
I got it.
When you say that, it's just like, what? Are you trying to freak everybody out?
They trashed me, and so I'm going to give them a little something back. So the story of Mexico is George Bush going in, and I think everybody knows PB success. PB success was Prescott Bush success, and George being the son of Prescott Bush, he was going to go in and do all these topples in Central America, which is great. I think that's great. The CIA has decided to do a lot of covert action in Central America. So anyway, the way they were going to do Mexico was that was going to be the largest. That was going to be the biggest fish, right? So they decided to do this thing where they would use the military police. The other ones you could use a coup, but this one had what made Mexico difficult is it has a lot of different states and a lot of different state police forces. So you need a real integrated strategy, right? It would be like taking over the United States, where the United States has 50 states, 50 state police troopers, 50 state militias. That's kind of how Mexico is. It's
right.
So you can't just go in and attack in Washington, D.C., because what will happen is all these state militias will start closing in on you, and you'll be pushed off, Washington, D.C. So what they needed to do is it's a political military infiltration in each state, and the original one was called DFS, which was the precursor to our DHS. And they used Slim's brother, his older brother, and then as they took over state by state, they would take out key banking people, key construction people, key food business people. You have food, you have to take over the food business because you have to have the drug lines. You have to take over the construction business to launder the money. You got to take over the banks to launder the money on the international markets. You got to take over the, you know, the weapons business, etc. You got to, and that's what they did, state by state. So Carlos Slim is the brother who's the slough off. They're giving him all the businesses because as the head of the federal police, Slim's brother, you can't give him all these businesses.
Right.
As these guys are going out of business, you can't say, hey, you just inherited Telcel, you know, the national phone company of, you know.
Wasn't it Teléfonos de Mexico?
Well, first one was Telcel.
Oh. He's not actually that slim. He could,
No.
he could hit the gym.
Yeah,
George, I'm sorry if I missed this, but would the drug gang violence be used as a pretext for going in and taking over
absolutely.
these regions?
Very good. I'm sorry, I should have said that. It's a clockwork orange in every state. So what you do is you have to take the lowest people on the totem pole, turn them into violent criminals. This goes back to LA where they would drop off
Crates of weapons
crates
in
of
the
weapons.
alley.
You
Yeah.
drop off crates of weapons. They'll naturally go to the gang members,
Right.
naturally. But you want to up the level of violence. You want to turn it into a automatic weapon versus automatic weapon because you don't want anyone in the neighborhood to think that they can stop this. This has to be like lethal
is what
force,
happens, yeah.
right? And then you're going to get in the bulletproof vests and all this. You're going to get the most vicious gang members, the most vicious leaders. You're going to have a Bloods, you're going to have a Crips. They're going to gang, counter gang. You're going to have this in every major state in Mexico. So you first create the chaos, then everybody votes for the tripling of the amount of money for the security spending. The security spending is going to be federal, right? We're going to bring in federales now to do the subjugation of that state. You're going to create fusion centers so you know everything the state police are thinking.
Which is what we did with the JTTR, right?
JTTF.
Or,
At
JTF,
DHS and
yeah.
fusion centers. This is an exact blueprint, an exact blueprint. DFS is an exact blueprint in Mexico for what happens later with our Patriot Act and so forth. This is also run in Vietnam through through Project Phoenix. Same exact program. 31 provinces, fusion center, torture center in every state, take over political military organization. Now you start picking winners and losers. And the reason why you pick winners and losers, you say, well, if you pick winners and losers, you're only going to have 80% of the GDP because people are going to know they're being killed and so forth. Well, you don't care because they're your winners and
Wingate Robinson.
they're losers, right? So as long as you get 60% or 50%, that's 50% more than you had before.
Right.
And you just do this. You just go bing, bing, bing. Just take out states. This is exactly what happened in Mexico.
Would they use the violence in those areas to supply the organ harvesting market?
We're not quite there yet. Not quite there yet. But yes, that's coming. Now, once you have control with a federal mechanism, you have the federal centers in every, sort of like JTTF in America. Once you control all the states and all the state police, let's say, and most of the major cities, okay, the sheriffs in most of the counties, the chiefs of police in most of the cities. Once I have that, now I don't want the gangs necessarily anymore. I want to consolidate around one gang because I want a clean rat line now. So now you go fast and furious, you go through, you wipe out all the gangs. You have all the gangs fight it out. Remember that big escalation in the warfare after the Fast and Furious? Now I go to one gang, Sinaloa, El Chapo. El Chapo's my man now. Now I want to do sex trafficking on a national scale. This is sort of like going from McDonald's from a bunch of individual mom and pop hamburger joints. You want the chaos first so you can get that increased military spending. Once you get the increased spending, now you want controlled rat lines. The reason why you don't want a lot of different gangs running a lot of different rat lines is confusing. It's confusing. You want one, it's like Rockefeller, he said, competition is confusing. I blow up all my competitors' plants because competition is confusing.
I care about my customer. I don't want them to be confused.
I can only keep track of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
These competitors are making it very difficult. So I'll blow them up. I think Kaboom actually came from the family that the Rockefellers contracted. The onomatopoeia of Kaboom.
Yeah.
I think it was actually a onomatopoeia of the family that would go blow up the different.
Oh wow.
Anyway, so this is the map, right? Now we have we wipe out all the other gangs. There was like 7 major gangs. I think there's still the Zetas a little bit, but Sinaloa is pretty dominant. Now Sinaloa, now you have your front man, which is Carlos. Carlos has always been just a repository. He's never been a genius. If you've ever talked to Carlos Slim, he's dumb as a box of rocks. Dumb as a box of rocks. But he's not doing all this stuff. This is all being planned in Langley.
He's sort of the figurehead that.
Yeah.
The hapless.
Yeah, and he's a billionaire like I'm a billionaire. If he wanted to go out and spend $10 million on something today, he's going to get a clearance from Clarence before he does anything with this money. But he's a storehouse, just like Jeffrey Epstein's a storehouse of money.
Okay,
and that's when they went out and built all these transplant hospitals. And that's what this article is all about.
And then this would seem to tie directly into the intentionally porous border we have with Mexico, and that is being maintained by DHS, is my understanding.
Absolutely. This becomes the launch pad, as well as Canada was before from the intelligence point of view. This is a launch pad for drugs and sex trafficking.
Yeah.
Pure, plain and simple. Arms go this way, girls, I guess some boys, and drugs go that way. And look how well it's working. Now, it's not Mexican immigrants prescribing those drugs, right?
Right.
That's done by my Turkish doctors. So all this is a very kind of intricate, network. It's quite beautiful.
And the Turkish doctors are brought here with those EB5.
H1Bs initially.
Oh, back in the 90s.
The OPEC countries are going to use the EB5, which is, hey, I got $1 million, here you go. I'm a citizen in the United States now. Mm-hmm. But the H1Bs are going to be more the student visas. These are the doctors in training.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But
the film school.
Yeah, and this is where this Bernie Weissandt's going to come in, because that's why it's so important to understand the rat lines, because before you tackle the visa question, because the people who you're bringing in are very specialized. You want to bring in the doctors who've got foreign degrees that are. And I can go to any country and get run a printing press and get somebody a foreign degree. Now I get them in the United States. Now I need to rig the USMLE test. I need to get them through the USMLE, which is the test for foreign doctors, for them to get into a med school here. So that's why you got your Soraya Begum. That's why Imran Awan and Soraya Begum, because she's associated with AAIT, which is the testing. Oh. And he's the guy who's in.
Wow.
Yeah, he's the guy in Maryland that runs all the testing. So you get those guys.
While she's working full time in Congress as an IT.
Oh no! This is the one who's working at VA.
Oh, okay.
Maryland and Virginia. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we found all those Awans who were making like over 200,000 at the VA, right?
Yeah, I think those are going to be just like you're going to have Awans like Smith. I mean, I tried to tie those together, and there's no tie at all. But this one is I need to control the prescriptions. I need to have a central funnel point for the prescriptions. It was first in the VA system, but then it got rolled out to like Spectrum Health and these, especially nursing homes. Nursing homes. So that's, but this here is all this. Anytime there's a foundation giving all the money to set up all these hospitals and so forth, of course there is. It's laundered money coming back through the drug money, investing in operating theaters. You have to invest in the operating theater, otherwise you're not going to be able to do the heart transplant.
Right.
Right. So Mexico has done this nice upscaling on the back of NAFTA with all these customers now. Affluent customers. You need affluent customers if you're going to get into the heart business in the long run.
That's one thing I just don't understand. Like, how many thousands of people are going to get a heart transplant every? Like, I just don't understand.
There's a huge waiting list. There's
Couple 100,000.
Like
couple
even if,
100,000 on the
but
waiting
even
list.
the people among, you know, given wealth inequality at this point and how few people are really able to go through, because what you've described and what I understand, and so correct me if I'm wrong, is that these are people who are extremely wealthy and can just fly in on a private plane and
But if you
have
die,
their,
you can't take it with you.
right, but are there really that many people who are like, are they getting multiple transplants or like who, that's the part I don't
Sometimes.
understand is,
Pam Fleischker had 3, or at least 2, at least 2. If you have a congenital heart defect, a lot of times the first transplant doesn't take.
well, my brother died. He was on a heart-lung transplant waiting list and he was on it for a year or so, but, and nothing
How old
came.
was he when he died?
His mid-20s, but it just, so I'm having a hard time.
Was it a
sort of-
congenital defect?
Yeah. Well, it was from a genetic disease. It was, so he had cystic fibrosis, so it
So
affected
lungs
his
was
heart and lungs.
filling up, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
a lot of times I believe in CF, even if they do a heart transplant, you're still going to have the problem of the welling in the lungs.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
But it just made me think, you know, I just can't imagine that many people being able to afford to do that once, much less.
But remember, this is one of the keys of Obamacare. With Obamacare, I can pay for it with the state.
Okay, that's
Right.
making a lot more sense to
Because
me then.
if you look at when MSNBC went to that West Virginia town that was the highest incidence of opiate death, there was somebody else in the audience who was in a wheelchair and had, you know, brain impairment and so forth, that had had $1 million operation for a kidney transplants. Well, I'm pretty sure that person didn't have $1 million.
Yeah.
Obamacare paid for that. $1 million.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting point, you know, George,
Yeah.
because whenever they talk about Obamacare, people feel like, oh, healthcare. The government's not paying for that. It's just a gigantic government program to sell you health insurance. It's a good
Big
deal for the
checkbook.
Yeah.
insurance companies.
If you're in control of that checkbook, if I have the death panel or whatever it's called, and I control who that goes to, if I control who it's referred to, who is the referring physician and so forth, and who reviews who gets the heart,
In which hospital?
and then I control who pays for it, that controls who gets the check. And that's actually what's happening. The Obamacare is being grotesquely manipulated. I actually,
Well, it's already a bad system.
it's a
and
bad
then-
system.
and
It's a
then-
bad system, but I don't. Again, I'm going to defend Obama here. I don't believe he had that intention in his heart. He's not Jack Lew. He's not Dennis McDonough. He isn't.
Yeah, I'm
somebody's-
speaking strictly about the legislation, not
Yeah,
about
yeah.
any of the people. But I mean, it seems
Yeah, I'll
set
get
up
off
to
that. I'm
exploit.
sorry. I always defend Obama. But,
Yeah, this is clearly a great big
But you can,
exploitation
you can see
opportunity.
here that Carlson's very famous for spending hundreds of millions of dollars building hospitals all over Mexico. Well, he has to. Like Charles Ortel said, you have all this money from the drug business. What do you do with it?
You have to launder it.
You gotta launder it. You
Yeah.
don't have any choice. If you leave it sit in a bank, it's a target. It's a target for any law enforcement agency to come and get it. Go and try to confiscate a hospital from a community. They're going to be like, "Are you nuts?" I go to that hospital. What if my mother gets sick? You'll have a huge outcry. Laundering money through hospitals is one of the
Brilliant.
smartest moves ever. Now we have your other group with laundering through art. We found another.
art
we should
for
transition.
embassies program.
Yeah, so we talked about this diplomatic immunity as one of the greatest ways of enabling a rat line, right? And I was very involved, obviously, in the 4 containers trying to come with the depleted uranium weapons and all that stuff coming into Charleston Harbor through the diplomatic container, right? But there's also the same kind of diplomatic loopholes for art, and one of them is called art for embassies. The idea is we don't want to start sending our artwork, on loan. Let's say we're going to have a 3-month exhibition over here. We don't want to always
They could damage it if
pinch it
they're
with,
looking through.
poking
yeah.
it and then pouring acid on it and all this to do their little tests, and dogs clawing it and chewing up the Rembrandt. Let's just have it sail through.
It's a private shipping channel.
Private shipping channel. And guess who's involved? John Podesta. Who else?
Jeff Koons, the Rockefellers, Clintons, Marina Abramovich.
She's bad news.
Yeah, the Rothschilds and our favorite, James Alefantis.
So these things are so obvious.
That's the art for
I just-
embassies thing?
I
Yeah,
just start
it's a
crying after a
Reddit
while.
thread.
They're just so obvious ducks of customs, you know, just, but people, you know, Abramovich is an interesting person because first of all, I think they paid for her changeover.
What changeover?
I think she
Trans?
I think she had a, don't you think
Really?
there was a changeover there? Well, anyway.
That
you
hadn't
know.
occurred to me, but
But you commission certain artists to just draw the horror of the mind in reminding an elite of them being compromised.
yeah.
So if you do have a brownstone operation going and you do, let's say, let's make the Rothschild a victim for a second. Let's say you have Jacob Rothschild in there with a child, okay? And you filmed them and you had the obligatory Cozy Bear and Fancy Bear on the wall, the two little stuffed animals. Here's Cozy Bear, here's Fancy Bear, they're on the wall. Well, you would then have Abramovich do a painting of someone who kind of looked like Jacob Rothschild or some symbology around the Rothschild family. Maybe the Rothschild crest would be like warped over a clock, you know, like Dali used to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the child would be over here, you know. You've got one like this.
What?
You got a picture like this.
What, Dali?
Yeah, you've got a couple of them. Anyway, Dali did used to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but he did it well, not like Abramovich, which is dirt. But then you would have
The Dali that I've got that George is talking about, just to clarify, is one of my favorite Dali paintings. Let me find it.
well, I'll show you where it could be interpreted as a brownstone, what they call a reminder. So what they try to do is make
That's the Dali I've got.
make it beautiful. They make the reminder beautiful in a way, which they fall far short with Abramovich. But you want that hanging in the compromised person's house because it's this constant reminder that we have you under our control. Okay, so they'll put Cozy Bear and Fancy Bear from the room where they filmed you.
Right.
They don't want to always be sending you pictures of Cozy Bear, Fancy Bear, you and the kid.
Right.
Then if I want to say I've been blackmailed, then I'll have to go and say, hey,
Right.
here's a picture of me
Yeah.
and the kid, Cozy Bear and Fancy Bear. See, everybody? You know, I was being blackmailed. So you have to
Be more subtle.
disguise it a little bit.
So is that sort of the same idea behind those like people cakes that they like to cut up from
Oh,
the
that's so
in
weird.
the chest?
The people cakes is psychological comfort.
Right, okay. Normalization.
That's a recruiting meeting.
Did you ever
Okay.
see Will Ferrell at the People Cake party? He looks so uncomfortable.
Yes, I
Yeah.
did.
Well, they've compromised Will Ferrell, right? So they say you have to be at the people cake party, right? This is like Colin Powell. They say you got to take 5 people to
Bilderberg?
not Bilderberg. You got to take 5 people to where out in the trees in San Francisco,
That's
Bohemian
right.
Grove. You got to
yeah,
take
yeah,
5
yeah.
people.
Right.
Everyone said Bohemian Grove's a conspiracy theory. And then, there are a lot of people think Bohemian Grove's a conspiracy theory. But then it came out in the
Alex Jones went there.
Podesta leaks. It came out in the Podesta leaks where Colin Powell saying, "Are you going to?"
Yeah.
It's like he's trying to get his cookies for his mom for the allotment that she's supposed to sell.
Girl Scout
Girl Scout cookies. Are you going to Bilderberg? Are you going to Bilderberg? I mean, Bohemian Grove.
Grove.
Are you going to Bohemian Grove?
Hey, George, you know what time it is?
I have no idea.
It's lunchtime.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
This has been a kind of a free form. We try to do variety in the morning.
This was
variety.
cool.
I thought
This
it was
was
good.
testing out the new switcher system.
Yeah.
Putting graphics on there.
I have no ability to see comments, so I'm
Well,
trying.
look it on your laptop.
No, my laptop's fried. I don't know what happened to it.
What are you talking about?
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So
I'm having trouble with mine too.
I'm relying on you for comments.
Maybe maybe what's happening is that the Wi-Fi is getting super hit by this thing because now we have all kinds of stuff going on.
Maybe
Wi-Fi.
that's it. Can people hear me?
Someone was saying they went to the Art for Embassies thing.
Webpage?
Yeah, and
Bohemian
now they're
Grove
having
is
trouble.
not a conspiracy.
Well, it's a conspiracy, but just not a theory. It's a conspiracy reality.
What,
I mean, if there's more
Bilderberg?
than one
No, the
person there, it's
Bohemian
kind of a
Grove.
conspiracy. isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, why don't we pack
Break
this up,
lunch.
get something to eat, and we'll come back later.
We'll
We're
talk
gonna-
about Charles Ortel later this
Yeah,
afternoon.
'cause
we'll
he
talk
talked
Charles
about
Ortel.
James Comey and Robert Mueller and their roles early on in the Clinton Foundation, and investigation, which was really interesting to learn. I didn't know those details.
And then I said, "You mean the Mark Rich investigation?" He goes, "Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, same one. Yeah, the one you gave Trish the 500 documents and said review this before." How many did you read?
I don't know. I think I got through like 220 pages or something.
Yeah, it was a lot. And then I mentioned that, oh, by the way, there was a guy named Rudy Giuliani that was originally involved in that investigation with Mark Rich, and
Yep.
he knew all about the
Charles is
he knew
the
all about
man.
the 2 steamer trucks. He knew the
Yeah.
whole story with Ed Comey then taking it over and then burying it. He knew the
Yeah.
whole thing. So Charles is very connected. So we're going to keep that connection going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's
He's
it.
also super nice.
He
is
is
also a
Talk
super
about
nice
like
man.
unassuming. Like he's brilliant. Brilliant.
He's got a new
brilliant.
book out.
Well, we're going to help him promote that book.
You know
Get
what?
him
He
on
did
that.
not mention his book one time.
No.
He did not.
No,
the
not
man is
during
so
that.
humble. He did not mention his book one time during the whole hour.
When we get him on.
Could you just
Skype-
look up his new book? Because I want to plug his new book.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people understand. Everybody thinks Charles is like a forensic accountant.
Yeah, and
And they don't understand his intelligence background and connections in journalism.
What
background.
intelligence background does he have? You are giving stuff away. Come on.
well, he's
Charles
he's
is our
very
friend.
connected, and he's.
I don't want
but
to say one more word.
Yeah, you've already said
No,
that.
no, I just want people to understand. I hope with the Peter Smith thing, people understand that he's not the mild-mannered Charles Ortel that everybody thinks he is.
Yes, he is. He's a
He
mild
is,
man.
but he isn't. He's a dessert
okay.
topping
talking about
and a
Pete
floor wax.
I
Smith?
think George needs lunch.
No, I'm not having a.
Well, I don't think Charles has announced that book
Yeah,
yet,
I don't
so maybe
see
it's
it.
not on the website.
Okay.
I think it's coming soon.
Yeah.
Well, there's going to be more than just accounting.
Yeah, he understands not only the simple accounting, but the legality of certain types of transactions, and by analyzing the financial statements, he's able to sort of build a narrative, and that's what he shared with us yesterday, is how all these rat lines and other activities and money laundering, how it worked through the foundation and all of that. So,
But I'll just submit now that Charles worked with folks.
He didn't say that to us. Why are you telling
No,
me?
I'm just saying he has good sources. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Anyway,
To be as good as he is,
yeah,
to be that good, he worked with people.
he's good. I got to tell you a little secret. I have no idea how to end the broadcast with this.
How many are on? How many people are here?
920.
That's
well,
good.
Before we end, I just want to say, I want to thank everybody for watching. We had a
Yes.
number of people commenting that you should sponsor Crowdsource the Truth. We cannot thank the generous sponsors enough. And whether that's $5 or $500, we've
Oh,
had
yeah.
some really
We,
generous
Yes.
we try not to ask, and I mean,
Not asking, just commenting. We've had
Yeah.
some generous sponsors.
But
And people were saying, are we a non-profit organization? I mean, we're not making a
That's for
profit,
sure.
but it's unintentional.
we have not filed a 503c.
Not a
No, not
501(c), and not planning to do that. I mean, the idea would be, we want this to be our jobs. We would like to be able to make enough money to buy food and clothing. Certainly George needs some clothing when it gets some stuff.
I'm not spending, I'm not spending anything.
All the money is on screen.
I steal everything I wear.
All the money's on screen. We've bought like the audio mixer and some tripod mounts.
The
and
audio
things like
mixer
that.
was like $150 or something because
The other one was terrible.
the other one was
Somebody
horrible and no one
commented
could hear what we were saying.
Yeah.
And we're getting to the point now where we're into the Charles Ortels now. I mean,
It needs to be better.
we're one heartbeat away from being killed by the CIA here. I mean, that's where you're close. You're close to the target and close to the truth when you start seeing dead bodies. I always
Yes.
say the same thing. Follow the bloody footprints and you're always going to be somewhere around the truth. Where if you're on Mars, at Mars colonies and what, children being dumped in Mars?
Yeah,
and-
apparently.
Yeah,
And-
that
and
was
apparent-
hilarious.
And apparently there's these Martian mechanics that, when the
could
probes
go
come
to
around, they have to hide, they have to go in these tunnels.
Yeah, that was
Jesus.
crazy.
Alex, crime and Natalie, are you
No, you're
kidding?
not supposed to take the name in vain.
I'm sorry.
Well, I actually just want to say thank you to everybody who's like sending links and leads and all that stuff, because it really, I apologize, I don't call everybody out all the time, but it really makes all the difference in the world and makes it a better
So, and
broadcast,
I
so.
want to also say about Larry Nichols, you know, I called him last night and I just said, sir, this is a call just about a well wish. You've been so important to the investigation and you've worked so much with so many different people. I just want to say thank you from our audience. And he says, oh, I know you guys. Like right off the bat. Now I know. I got another phone call here just before the broadcast. I know how he knows us. So he was kind of expecting our call, which I would have called sooner.
How did we know that?
Deep Uranium called me right before the show.
Oh.
So he set that up.
Oh, wow, great.
So, yeah. So anyway, it's deeper than we thought. Let's just
great.
leave it there. But he just said no. You know, you could tell he was at the end of the day. It was like 11 o'clock at night. I mean, here, it was 10 there. But he said, no, I got something to tell you boys. You know, get on that computer. I got to get. So if you listen to that tonight, you really get an insight on how involved he still is with his health situation, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So anybody, I mean, I'm not.
He sounded good. He sounded real lively and everything on the phone.
He pepped up when he's Jason. Is that Jason? You know, it's like Jason. Let me tell you something. You know.
I like him. I've always liked hearing him on Alex Jones and whatever,
Yeah.
and the Clinton Chronicles and everything.
And so I'm going to give him some money today. This is just like Lee Stranahan. You know, these are things. You know, I think I gave $200 to Lee Stranahan. You know, to sponsor one kid in journalism school. I was going to do
Citizen
more.
Journalism School.
Yeah, I was going to do more. I wanted to do 5, and I'm going to get there. I
George,
promise.
should we tell people what we're planning for later in the summer?
Oh yeah. Why don't you? Are you on camera? Are you on camera?
I'm on camera.
Okay.
You're right here. So we were talking about putting together a seminar because so many people want like a recap, a summary. We've got a lot of new people coming in to Crowdsource the Truth who maybe haven't seen all of your videos. So we were thinking about putting together like a seminar called Awan Brothers for
101
Dummies.
or something.
Well, 101. We haven't decided on the name yet, but the idea is there'd be a big, maybe 2-hour seminar with George, and we were going to call on some of our friends to, you know, maybe Lee. We haven't even discussed with them yet, but bring in a bunch of people, have a weekend where people could come to New York, stay in a hotel. We'd put together a package price at a hotel, and we'd have seminars all day and a dinner at night where you could meet everybody and the community could really come together. And we're sort of thinking about that. We're sort of looking at, you know, what people's price range would be for something like that, the level of interest. So, you know, send emails to truth@crowdsource the truth if you're interested, or go on the Facebook group and post about that, ask about that, and we can get people talking and
But
see what
hopefully
people think.
the people who we've done deep dives, deep focus stuff with already, we would build on what they've done in our piece. So
Yeah.
we would try to get a Jerome Corsi. We would try
Right.
to get a Charles Ortega. Well, I
Yes.
think he
But
was
of course,
very.
It would be
we
like
can't
a-
speak for those
We can't.
guys.
We would try. I said we
Yeah.
would try.
Yeah.
We would try to get a Lionel there because it would make sense that you would have a pretty good pre.
Scrunchy Fest 2017.
Yeah, scrunchie. We could sell scrunchies. What are they thinking? We could sell scrunchies, and then you know. Never
Well,
mind.
it would be a great way for us to sort of refine how we work with the researchers in the field and identify ways of moving forward that will better facilitate the engagement and the feedback loop that
Yeah.
we've got going
And-
here.
and none of this-
Jennifer Jensen says don't have it in August. It can be hot in New York in August,
Yeah.
but, you know. And someone wants Deep Uranium to be there. That's not going to happen.
Well, I think we could have deep uranium through a voice synthesizer.
Oh, maybe like through Skype or something.
Yeah, and we, you know, Deep Uranium gave us another code name of one of the other cadre of 5.
No, let's not discuss it.
No, I'm not going to. I've said he had a group of 5 already, and so very gradually here we're going to be able to, you know, through Deep Uranium's kind of at his schedule, we'll be able to release who our sources are. We don't want to have unknown sources the whole time. We want our general
Well, there's some
objective is
sources that are
moving.
known.
Yeah, but I mean, our general objective is not to have any unnamed sources.
Really?
Eventually, we want our sources to come in from the cold
But
gradually.
I like it when they call and you get to hear like Squidward and, you know, we mask the voice. So you know that's a person. He's talking. That was an authentic call. but we mask the voice to protect his identity because he's, you know, these people are.
But here's my point: is like there's not just one person at NYPD Intel that wants to come clean about this whole JTTF thing and the McCabe thing. They all want to come clean.
So is your idea is the idea that you do it publicly in order to protect yourself, like you?
Yeah. So there's safety in numbers. So what I'm saying is, you know, if I'm NYPD 2, I not only am safer than I was the day before, I'm also making NYPD 1 safer.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I go back to what Eric Braverman and all those guys in Oxford were saying. When you're the one person in a huge pool of corruption, doing the right thing is sometimes impossible.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to provide a platform where then NYPD 3 can come out. We didn't have to see. We didn't even have to say NYPD Intel. They could just be NYPD 1, NYPD 2, and the vetting we will assure the audience of is they worked for at least a decade, let's say, for NYPD in the Intel division. Okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they would know that they're credentialed and vetted. So if we did say Deep Uranium 2, let's say, that we would be able to say, we've seen the DD 214, we've seen that, yes, you've had at least 10 years in Army intelligence or some kind of intelligence service in the armed services, and at least 10 years in a civilian intelligence agency, one of the 17 that we put up, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to come about a balance point between the audience and us and other journalists, because I don't want to keep saying, oh, these are all of our unknown journalists. Because I'll tell you right now, Customs and Border Patrol still think that the 6 guys don't exist. They think I dreamed them up. So I have a vested interest in.
But they aren't necessarily. You're not proposing. I think, you know, initially I thought what you were saying was that, you know, everybody has to be, you know,
no, I mean a gradual,
fully identified right off the bat, and
a gradual process.
That makes more sense.
Because
it's only for people who want to.
Yeah.
Right, but I want to encourage other people in NYPD to come forward. I want to encourage FBIers to come forward. I want to encourage people in CIA to come forward, ODNI to come forward, NGA to come forward, NSA to come forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if they come forward now, here's what happened with Redstone Arsenal. The 2 guys came forward, right? Somehow they flew up as tourists, is the story, met with Devin Nunes, got into the Eisenhower building, got a little bit of intelligence in. Now we don't know where the hell they are. Now they're in Guantanamo, they're in Holman Square, we don't know where the hell they are.
Right, and we've seen, like with the WikiLeaks, doing whistleblowing anonymously, it really increases your risk.
So I'm just trying to build a bridge
between
Snowden having to completely change his life and go to Russia,
and Julian Assange, who's hiding out in the...
being imprisoned versus some middle ground.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Cool.
So
all right, well listen guys, let's wrap it up. We appreciate everybody very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys later today, later tonight.